Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bad Big Games. I'm your host, Joseph. Today, we're going to talk about EA's purchase of Respawn Entertainment and the purchase of the Titanfall IP. Now, I got home today after school and I saw something really nuts. The headline that EA has purchased Respawn Entertainment, the creators of Titanfall, the previous creators of Call of Duty, the previous creators of Medal of Honor. These guys have a pedigree that has lasted decades in the industry, and they've been purchased by EA for over $400 million. This comes just weeks after the announcement that EA was shutting down Visceral and that we're shutting down their Star Wars game with Amy Hedging, the creative director behind Uncharted. So, what does this all mean? Did Respawn just make a huge mistake? And wasn't EA already owning Titanfall and owning Respawn? What does this mean? So first off, right off the top, the common misconception is that Respawn was always EA's property and that Titanfall, the IP, was always owned by EA because EA published both Titanfall 1 and Titanfall 2, and Respawn made Titanfall 1 and Titanfall 2. So, what does this mean? Well, first off, when Respawn signed on with EA, they had a contract with EA that was kind of special. Not a lot of studios get this type of treatment. It was kind of a exploratory type of phase where they get to make the games, right? EA gets to publish them, but Respawn owns the IP. Usually when you're working with huge third-party publishers like EA, Activision, Ubisoft, they own the rights to all the IP. In this deal, actually Respawn had the benefit of owning the IP. So if they wanted to, they could take this to another publisher if they wanted to, and they could publish the game for them. So they really had a lot of freedom. So why make this decision? Well, first off, we have to say this. As much as it sucks to see Visceral go, as much as I would have loved to see what they made of Star Wars, as much as I love Dead Space, Respawn is not Visceral. Respawn and Titanfall are not Visceral and Dead Space. Remember with Visceral, they made Dead Space this great series, one I loved, but was never really profitable. Hell, there's even stories of Dead Space 2, as much as a great sequel of that game was, actually losing EA money, and the third game as well also losing them money. On top of that, Visceral made a Battlefield game that, let's be honest, wasn't very good. Remember Battlefield Hardline? There you go. I could almost forget it. That's how bad it was. Within weeks of that game's release, Battlefield 4, the prior game, had more players on their servers than Hardline. So when it comes to Respawn, when it comes to Titanfall and Titanfall 2, that community is still super active. And on top of that, I think the board members see their mistakes, that this wasn't a mistake from Respawn's perspective, it was their perspective. I think launching Titanfall 2, they saw the fault in their ways. They tested something out and it didn't work on their end. I think the one thing we don't get to see is what's working behind the scenes. Obviously, they contracted Respawn to make them a Star Wars game, and it looks like it's working. It looks like they're giving Titanfall another chance because they're going to be publishing Titanfall 3. So this is all great news for us. And at the end of the day, when we look at the pedigree of Respawn, you see two solid games, Titanfall 1 and 2 being really great games. You're seeing them who were previously Infinity Ward making the Call of Duty series that we know and love up until Modern Warfare 2. And then we see them also working with EA in the past with the Medal of Honor series. So if I was Respawn, I don't go actually solo. I don't go to Activision because there's so much bad blood between us. And I don't think Ubisoft has the portfolio space to fit Respawn in their portfolio with their, Tom Clancy games. So I think if you're Respawn, you want to go bigger and badder. I think EA kind of wants to make Respawn like their Bungie when it comes to Destiny and Activision's relationship. I think they see studios like BioWare and how they're able to grow them from the Mass Effect series, from the Dragon Age series, and even prior to Jade Empire and all that jazz, and the Knights of the Old Republic. But they're able to grow these companies that people really, really love, like DICE when it comes to the Battlefield series, and hopefully Battlefront. Let's Let's pray to God. But nonetheless, they build all these studios that people really, really love, and it almost kind of makes you forget who owns those studios. So I think when they see Respawn, they see the pedigree that Respawn has, the games they made, the studio, and the community that surrounds the studio, and they see that as something that they can build, a foundation that they can make some awesome games with. So to me, this all makes sense. This is a deal I think made in heaven. I think giving this company $400 million to play with to, grow this team or teams in Respawn can only benefit Respawn and EA in the future. So with that said, with that all out of the way, those are my thoughts about the whole deal. Again, I think if we're comparing Visceral to Respawn, I think it's an unfair comparison because I think they're two totally different studios. I think if I have to choose who goes, Respawn or Visceral, I'm choosing Respawn because of the franchises and the communities that they're able to build. And unfortunately, with Visceral, they're just not able to do that. So I can see them, again, infusing this company with cash and making a deal that's going to last them, 5, 10 plus years. So with all that said, all that out of the way, everybody, I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And with that said, guys, I'm back from hiatus. I know it's been a while. School got a little crazy. Midterms happened, but I am back to that 2 to 3 videos every single week. I want to thank everybody for their overwhelming support the past few days. It's been rough, but with your support, it's really been something else. So thank you guys. And with all that said and all that out of the way, everybody, keep your wits about you and have a great one.